So help me understand where this relationship stands today and the purpose of Sullivan's visit to Beijing.
It's a great question, and the purpose of his visit is a continuation of the discussion. Right? We saw that relations between China and U.S. were steady but low. And when the incident with the spy balloon happened, there was a lot of noise made about how they were hitting a bottom in those relationships. But since that time, NSA Sullivan has met 4 times with Mr. Xi on the other side. You've had Yellen, you've had Secretary Blinken going to China, you've had meetings with Xi Jinping coming to California. There is this constant hum of discussion, and I think that sort of diplomacy, the blocking and tackling, the brushing your teeth of diplomacy is the sort of regular, habitual communication that you need to have to make sure that areas that become tense do not explode into something more serious.
Of course, also fair to say that there are a number of strategic tensions between the two here. Taiwan, of course, on top of the list, but at the same time, issues in the South China Sea, China's ties to Russia, US export controls as well. What specific outcomes do you think the Biden administration can actually achieve here during Jake Sullivan's visit, particularly in an election year stateside?
Yes, it's going to be difficult to come away with any big wins, anything headline. I think this is, again, routine maintenance. I think that they will both air their complaints about the other side. I think that from the U.S. side, China's support of Russia and their invasion of Ukraine is going to be high on the list. Chinese efforts to steal or appropriate U.S. technology will be up there. For China, it will be the U.S. restrictions on technology trying to choke off China's advancement. And both sides will discuss these things, and that is an important way of understanding the other side's perspective so that you don't have something like the tensions in the Taiwan Strait elevating or escalating to a kinetic engagement without the sort of checks that routine diplomacy allows.
One of the other interesting things that we've been looking at is the impact of the shift in sentiment around the US presidency on the US-China relationship. How do you think Beijing is viewing the prospects of Trump or Harris in November?
I didn't think you'd let me out of here without talking about the election. But you're right. There will be a keen interest on the China side of what's going to happen in the United States. The thing is that it used to be that protectionism and isolationism was the sort of economic purview of the Democratic side, whereas the Republicans were much more into globalization. But the Trump presidency took that protectionism and isolation and really drove it forward. The tariffs on just about everything that comes from China. Then the Biden administration was sort of handed that, and they said, oh, okay, I guess we'll keep it for now. And so they have that carrot. There could be some reduction in those tariffs as an inducement for China to come a little bit towards U.S. policy. There are ways that each side could concede bits to the other and allow the relations to go forward, not holding hands and singing, but with a modicum of interaction, collaboration, cooperation, and especially communication.
So collaboration and competition at the same time, which
Exactly.
seems to be the US position. So take me inside the managing partner's office on this. What's the law firm perspective here, and is this something that your clients are actually coming to you and asking about?
Oh, absolutely. So I have to mention that I'm the managing partner of our London office and not the firm, but I do work in international trade regulations. So all of those U.S. regulations that sneak outside the United States and affect international business, my clients want to know what's coming. How do we see ahead? How do we change our practices to fit the geopolitical future that's going to affect our regulations? So yes, this is something we're discussing all the time, and the U.S.-China relationship is paramount for folks in the U.S., folks in China, and throughout the U.K. and Europe and the Middle East. They are on this board where you have two dominant players, but they have skin in the game, and they want to know how are these two going to respond to each other, because that's going to impact our business around the world.
So what type of questions are you getting from clients? Is it along the lines of, where does Harris stand on export controls, or, where does Harris stand, where does Trump stand on, this relationship moving forward? Is it along those lines?
Absolutely. I am often asked, what's coming next? And I am, not clairvoyant, but there are ways of taking the past precedent from, say, Biden's administration with Harris as vice president, or the past Trump administration, and saying, look, the past Trump administration looked a lot at protectionist actions, so they might use these regulations, these laws that are already existing to make these changes to reduce the import of steel into Mexico for use in cars that are allowed under NAFTA, right? There are these kind of technical adjustments that might be made. Harris, on the other hand, has been part of an administration that's very focused on keeping technology, critical technology, within the United States, limiting exports, limiting Chinese investment, and really protecting that for the United States. So that's likely to continue in a Harris administration.